Hi there, I'm Lightbath, and I'll be your host as we explore the joy of patching.
The joy of patching.
Today we're going to travel back in time to moments just before this patch was built, so that we can witness together all the discoveries that led to this, all the decisions that were made along the way that brought us to this point. It's a deep dive, so I hope you stick around. Okay, here we go. Joy of Patching, episode 2, with this chaos devices and other things system. Let's go to the very beginning, which is going to be clock. Let's make Batumi the master clock in divide mode. Let's clock Moskwa with Batumi, and let's CV out into octave shifter thingy and into pitch. So now let's just listen to the fundamental. Hold up, what are we missing here? Because I went into volume instead of input. Let's try again. Okay, so I have a sequence already programmed into Moskwa. We're not going to get into how I did that. I did a few live streams with my patrons. That's step mode. This is pattern mode. Pattern shows us that we have 2 steps with pattern information in them. All right, consult the manual. Okay, I can't even think with that going. I don't know about you, but it's like listening to Radiohead and trying to sing Happy Birthday. Pressing and holding the pattern preset button for 1 second enters the preset memory. Okay, because if you just press it, you are in pattern mode. If you press and hold it, you are now in preset memory. Let's get some effects happening. Send to mimeophone. Let's go out, back into the return. That's nice. Let's clock mimeophone so that it's in sync with the sequence from Moskwa. And I think right now the easiest thing might be to go out of the clock out of Ostenkino, which is that's not long enough, which is the expander for Moskwa. By the way, thank you, Hossa, for the cables. I have some feedback about lengths. This length is not long enough. The next longest cable is super crazy long, like twice the short one. This one could stand to be just a little longer because it just keeps falling short. And then I have to use like super floppy zone instead. So, just saying. Okay, so now, as I speed and slow Moskwa's rate div malt knob, mimeophone will follow. So that's pretty cool. Let us now fade in and out. I've got this channel of Zadar already set up with this. I just like that. That's really nice. Slow it down a little. Yeah, so we're just moving the volume of this fundamental. And in fact, because this is mono, let's use Zagshub to do some fun stereo imaging to that. Stereo imaging heap. How about bandpass? I actually really like to bandpass sine waves. Listen to that. That just sounds good, because sine waves are like so bottom heavy, so like low mids heavy. You scoop a little bit of that out, and it's nice. Let us adjust the spread control. Maybe just with like an oct channel right now. Let's just, I don't know. Okay, that's pretty cool. Oh yeah, so we're only voluming this one. Let's mult that so that both sides get VCA'd. Yeah, that is a happy little tree for sure. Let's patch the partials. So what do we want to put them into? Let's natural gate them. Yeah, this has to reach back up, so they're still too short. Let's open up these gates so that when I plug them in, we can hear them. Still too short. This is what I mean. This is a great example of that length. And now, instead, I gotta use the super long flop zones, and they're just gonna hang way down. See, these could be like that long, and it would be so much better. Okay. We need some volume enveloping of these. We'll use the natural gate for that, and let's use 2 channels of maths, because, let's review, I have 2 maths channels, that's 2 envelopes, and a third with cascade, and that's all the envelopes, not including Zadar, because I don't particularly like to trigger envelopes in Zadar. I find it too hard to use. I just want a rise and a fall knob and be done with it. But I love to loop Zadar because it has some really interesting shapes. I think using Zadar for like normal envelopes is kind of like trying to reinvent the wheel when you don't need to, but Zadar really shines for like interesting modulation. Okay, so red and orange out of the 2 unity outs into control and control. And then we need to trigger these. Where are we going to trigger them from? From Jena. Let's get into the Leibniz binary subsystem. So Dresno can be fed a sine wave that is, in sync from the whole master, Batumi master thing. Check out Batumi master on the 4 Hexagons YouTube channel, my old YouTube channel, if you want some classic Lightbath zones, pre-Lightbath zones. I used Batumi to like control the entire patch through quantization. It did the rhythms and the melodies, and I was like playing it. Yeah, it was really cool. Okay, so, let's see. So we go. We're now indexing these tables in here based on the sync of this sine wave, since we're in the synchronous regime. And so now all I have to do is take a couple bit outs, and doesn't matter which ones, just anything, and trigger. What if we used the gate out of Moskwa and just multed it and did them both the same? Because, you know, the mutes module, the DivKit mutes module, it's like it malts. So you go into one, you come out of both, which is cool. Yeah, I like them working together. Well, let's listen again with the other way when we use the bit outs, like different rhythms from bank E here, which is like the drum bank. They're way more sparse. Oh, they're not plugged in all the way either. No, it's too sparse. Yeah, okay. So gate out from Moskwa. We can always carve them down to be more sparse later. Okay, I like it. Let's... That's nice. Let's filter these. You know what? Disting. Because I want to use sisters for rings, and I want to use Belgrade for Plaits. So, yeah, let's do that. Get a little friendly forest here. Get some friends for this. So this will just allow me to roll off a little bit of those highs. Granted, I don't even know if it's needed, because watch this. You can just roll the highs off this way. Well, let's leave it plugged in, and if we need the filter for anything else later, we can remember that. Because yeah, spectral tilt is very much like a filter. Yeah, lots of cool stuff that we have available in Odessa that we can get to, but it's fine right now. Okay, I like this. Now what? What if the pitch of mimeophone were to warble a little bit? What would be a suitable modulation source for that? Why not? Is that our channel B? Yeah. Yeah, okay, I like it. Great. I like how Zadar has, like, you know, the voltage level out, and it's basically an attenuator. It's kind of just nice to have onboard attenuation like that, because this particular input, for example, doesn't have an attenuator, so that's nice. Okay. Let's make some bass. Now, Moskwa is a mono sequencer. It only does one channel. So, I don't know why I said mono, but I mean, yeah. I guess it's mono. And So we're gonna need to generate pitches by using modulation shapes run through Quantizer. I think that's the best bet. And that's sort of what the plan is for this case. That's when I was configuring it, like that was the idea. It was like, well, I only have one of these, so we're gonna need to be able to control other voices in some way. So, if I were to want some bass, use a channel of Zadar, provided it reaches. I'm gonna want some easier octave control. Grab the long floppies. Yeah, okay. So I have that set to a scale that I like. And we can now go from there into the volt per octave input. And let's patch some audio. So we're in the Blue Zone here. The Blue Zone cookbook. Let's go out of Plaits. Yeah. To Belgrade. We should be able to hear it. Yeah. It's really low. It's okay. It's okay. It's a little fast, but I have a trick that I want to show you that I discovered when I was on those Patreon live streams. And it goes a little something like this. Send an offset into the assign input of Zadar and set that assign input to Tim. Time, abbreviation for time. And you can speed and slow. Watch this line. And just listen. Really cool. So now this offset becomes my melodic speed, you know, melodic contour speed. Unsynced, you know what I mean? It's not, we're not making like metric music exactly here, so it's fine. Granted, this is completely in sync. This main melody we're hearing, but the bass is not like in sync. I want some rings now, don't you? I know you do. I bet you want some rings into clouds when you're not getting it. You're gonna get some rings into Magneto, into Data Bender is what you're gonna get. Let's do the same idea. Same thing that we did with the bass. Let's use green. I like green. Green looks better than yellow. Wouldn't you agree that green looks better than yellow? Just in general. I like green better than yellow. Don't tell yellow. I love yellow still. But in Hossa cables, I like their green better. Okay, so volt per octave. And something weird is happening with my Tall Dog rings. For whatever reason, it does not trigger itself when giving it volt per octave. You have to give it a strum. Makes no sense, but again, I don't really have the bandwidth now to try to troubleshoot that, so I will just use a strum. And we will use one of these bit outputs that we had before, so let's just pick one, just do it. Good enough. Okay, let's listen. So now let's patch the output. Actually, we are going to need an attenuator because Rings has a super hot output, and Sisters has a super hot input. And it will distort if you don't attenuate it a little bit. So I have this little passive attenuator thing that I got from somebody in Europe built it. I don't remember who, but whoever that was, thank you for making those. Hit up the comments to say who that was if you know who that was, who it is that makes those, so other people can get them. So we'll go out of Sisters. Actually, let's go out of Sisters into a Shades channel so I have a volume control over this, because every voice needs a volume control. Now we'll go into Magneto from Shades. That's not long enough. Oh. Just use a long floppy. Okay, and now we will go out of Magneto into Data Bender. I'm just doing it in that order because I want the left channel to be yellow, because Roy G. Biv. There it is. Damp is all the way up, so it's sustaining. That's nice. Oh yeah, that's nice. Woo, yeah! Now we're talking. Okay. Oh yeah, I tried to turn this to make a difference foundation. Let's connect a long floppy to the input of Zadar, which is, again, still assigned. I figured that out on the live stream. To Tim. Thank you, Tim, for changing your time so I can make this fast. Fast melody, slow melody. That's cool to have that. You thought Rings into Clouds was cool? Wait till you hear Morphagene into Clouds. You're gonna flip your lid. Yeah. Okay, now it's time to do my 2 favorite tricks with Rings and Clouds separately. So let's do Rings first. I like to, when I'm in the string mode like this, adjust structure. Like the Arcology video, you know? That Arcology video that was done at Arcosanti. I do that in there. I do it all over the place. But I'm usually using a full-size ring, so I can just grab structure. Well, we got microzones in here because I wanted to, well, for many reasons, but first of all, it's black, and I wanted black panels mostly. So, but yeah, that works. Okay, now the other trick is the Clouds trick, which is one of the coolest things. And I'm not going to give you all of the details of it, but people in Club Lightbath Zone over on Patreon, they know what's up. They've heard me talk about that. That's the place to get the inside scoop. Okay, so here goes. Yes. Whoa, hey now. Let's not get carried away. It's a little early for modulation, but I feel like modulating some of these parameters in Odessa to get these like shiny overtones, these partials, voices, like breathing a little bit more. So let's just do it. Going to grab red and orange because, you know, it's the kind of the colors that are being used here anyway. So both of these parameters, warp and density, parts of the comb filter, have attenuators on them. So I can just like choose two sources and just the harmonic factor now. What can I use for that? Some sort of random might be fun. I wonder what random out of nano rando would sound like, but I feel like I need to attenuate it. Don't pull your cables out by their cables, kids. Don't do as I do. Do as I say. Attenuate with maths. Too short. There. Be safe. Safety first with modulator. That's what I always say. And safety first with mountain biking. Let me tell you about it. Then you don't tear your rib cartilage permanently. It still burns. Okay, I think it's moving around. I'm just gonna leave it. I think I'm fine with that. This is nice. I want to send that rings. You didn't see me yanked by that cable there. I'm going to send that rings into Talon. Where does it go after Sister Kinda here? Into Talon, and then into this attenuator. Because watch what that lets me do. Listen to what that lets me do. Check this out. Distortion. But then I can just clean it up. If I want. That was just DataBender holding, you know, that was DataBender sampling what happened before and hitting it again. But yeah, so it's clean again. Or I can switch it on. Turn up the pre-gain, turn down the post-gain. It's like a guitar amp, you know? So that's fun. Okay, let's see what else. I have another trick. This is similar to the trick that I did in episode 1, Joy of Patching episode 1. Check this out. So, what we do is we give offsets to the pitch generating shapes before the quantizer. So, that would be this and this. So let's take both of those and go out of 1, 2, and 3, 4 of Samara, okay? Now you can see already I have it set up to do this. Channels 1 and 3 are red, and that means an offset has been added to those, has been like attached to those channels. Then 2 and 4 are what we're going to input into, and those knobs will then be attenuators. And so we'll have attenuation and offset to the modulation that is being quantized if we go into 2 and 4. So what's happening is attenuation on 2, offset on 1. And same thing here, so let's listen. Oh wait, is it not working? remove some other activity just to see if we can hear this. Oh yeah, we have this happening too. Let's remove that. Just trying to figure out why I'm not hearing it. Okay, it was just the way it was filtered. We weren't hearing those higher frequencies, I think. So we can do that now. We can do the fun knob turn jam thing. And then we can do it to the bass too here. Which is great. So now we have like transposition type control, like through the scale. So like diatonically through the scale. So that's awesome. Now here, this is what is so cool. Moskwa allows you to do that internally without all these external like things. It has a transpose input. So watch this. So let's listen to just Moskwa. Love it. Now we could also, I'm curious, if we go out of that offset into a quantizer and set that quantizer to just like a couple smaller intervallic, you know, smaller thing and not just the full squish. What does that sound like? And then we can disable that in there if we need. So like, yeah, so like if I want to transpose by a specific interval, that's nice. Or I can enable all of the notes of this particular scale, or just some notes of this scale. That's neat. Isn't that great? Okay, let's get back to the happy little clouds over here. And in fact, let's filter Morphagene before clouds. Let's grab two long and floppies. And go into clouds from the mid-band of Katowice. And let's go into, that's not gonna reach. Let's go into Katowice. Morphagene. So now, take a listen to just that. So like I can window it down. There's no resonance in this filter, but it is a variable width bandpass. So I can make it narrow and high. So we just get those like textures. Or we can widen it, get more of the piano kind of sound than fundamental. So yeah, I love variable width bandpass filters on everything. Like it's like the Lightbath DJ filter. It's not a DJ filter, but it's just a variable width window. And if I could, I would have that on everything. I mean, this is currently running like that. This is currently running like that. This is currently running like that. So everything in this case that can do that is doing that. Zagreb does not do that way. It's a fixed bandpass, but we're just adjusting the spread, which is kind of neat though too. that's too loud. Let's modulate the span of Belgrade with, I guess, just like another oct channel, because it has a attenuator on it already, so just plug it into one of those and be done with it. And because this is at a dual peak variable with bandpass filter, span actually ends up basically being like the higher cutoff, so it's almost like just doing cutoff, but it's keeping the low point where it is, the high pass part. It's just moving the low pass part. So it's just giving us some more buzz. In fact, actually, I want to go out of Belgrade into Kamieniec, the phaser. Let's get into some phase zones. Output of DataBender and put it through Minsk, a mid-side processor. I want to adjust the width a little bit, stereo width. Feeding it anything right now. Okay, so there's an example. Here is mono rings. Here is stereo rings. Here is like super wide. It's like weird. It does like a weird psychoacoustic thing. I mean, it goes out of phase, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. And there's also this dimension control that's like different reverberant spaces. That's without it. That's with it. So cool. It's subtle, but it's nice. And this is how much low frequencies we want to put into the sideband. This is coming together really nicely. I think it's time for some white noise modulation. The Arbeni trick. I learned it from Arbeni. I don't, it's not the Arbeni trick, but let's call it the Arbeni trick. So out of the white noise source in nanorand into a mult, and then let's just like distribute. How about Zagreb? And do I need to mult it again? Is there another place I'd want to send it? I don't think so. I usually just noise modulate filter cutoffs. are not enveloping, are we? I hear it getting louder and quieter. Let me figure this out. So, no, the bass is actually, it gets quiet though. I haven't figured that out why it's getting quiet, but it'd be good to use, the plan was to use Cascade for that. I was kind of saving that because, you know, these two were these two, the fundamental, or the odd and even partials of Odessa. Yeah, so like envelope out going into the level input, which I'll put in a moment. I'm not going to patch it all the way yet because we need to trigger it from somewhere. And we can probably just trigger it from a Jena channel. One of the bit outs. So it should be less present now. There should be more space. Yeah. That's nice. We needed that. Okay. Let's do a similar kind of carving of space. You know, what's that form of art called? Sculpture. Let's sculpt a little bit of these bright partials of Praga by using the VCAs. And I just need to find two suitable modulation sources to move them around. What would be nice? Slow oct channels, which are already being used, so I won't do those. If this were a live stream, I would ask you, and you could say, do this. And I could say, that's a great idea. I'm kind of lost as to what, because I want two. I was hoping to have two separate, well, let's just do one. One is fine. I'm actually curious what would it be like if we used Morphagene's CV out. What would that be like? Remember, what's my approach? Who knows? Who's read my interviews and knows? My approach is, what would happen if? And you filmed like, what would happen if we took the CV out of Morphagene? And used it to modulate the volume level. Of these guys. Oh, the CV out currently is configured as such to have a ramp. You have to go into the file and change it to make it, to set it to be the amplitude of the part. Do you have the patience for me to do that now? I think you do. Vibe out to this patch for a moment while I go to the computer and change that around. Did you stick around? I hope you did. It took me a second to find the little adapter that changes the micro card to a normal SD card. What do? I hit Shift? Yeah. There we go. So yeah, now I did option 0 instead of option 1. Option 0 is the envelope follower for the CV out instead of a ramp. A ramp is nice because you can make pulses happen and like yup, 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 yup stuff, like almost like sidechain stuff. But in this case, is that not strong enough? Let's listen to just it. Oh, it actually has to be on. That's too bad. I wish SOS did not have to be all the way on in order to make the output. That's a request for Make Noise. Have the envelope follower output be like full level, full amplitude, regardless of where this is placed. That way you can use a reel to affect something without actually hearing the reel at the same time. I would make that option 2. Yeah, we'll leave it. I don't know how effective it is. It's fine now. Okay. Now what? Just bringing in some of this noise modulation that I patched earlier but didn't actually enable. Let's take these rhythms that are happening in Jena, which are just a static table being read over and over again in a loop as synced by this sine wave. Let's actually modulate which table is being indexed, which is the shape control. And we'll just take like a random out so you see the numbers changing. And just give us some rhythmic variety. That should be nice. Even though we're really only just like triggering rings with that anyway. Let's trigger some more things with that. Where could we send triggers in this case? Oh, hold up. This whole time Magneto has not been clocked. Let's actually clock Magneto because I hope it doesn't like ruin the vibe. But kind of would make sense to clock Magneto and then clock Databender. I'll just use like one of the clock outs from Magneto because I don't have like a master clock that we just have Batumi, and it's not the same as like a PAMS or something. Wait a minute. What is our Databender here clock? I love having like a PAMS in the case because then you can just specifically say what exactly you want where. Okay, I don't think it ruined anything. I think we're fine. Okay. So, what else is going on in here? We have some modulation from this we could bring around, some offsets from planar. We have an empty Talon channel we could use. Because you know, the goal of every patch is to plug in all the wires. So if all the wires aren't plugged in, then the patch is not legitimate. Oh, let's see what happens with clouds if we actually trigger that as well. That would be a good place to send one of these bit outs to. Sure, I'll take that. What do I want to control with planar? Actually, here, this is a trick I did in the live stream, in the Patreon live stream. Check this out. You can send the two offsets, X and Y, to the first step and last step CV inputs on Ostankino, and watch what this does. Watch the lights here on Moskwa. I've just reduced it to just these three right here, and I can like rotate them around. See how I like rotate there and then there, and I'm rotating clockwise, right? And then I can make it wider than 3 and rotate. So you can choose how much of the sequence you want to be played in any one particular time. That's kind of cool. And that feels good on a joystick. That's kind of like a little more intuitive on a joystick like that. It's too bad that Magneto doesn't have CV control over the volume of each head. Like, if Strymon really knew what they were doing in Eurorack zones, they would have utilized some of the I/O for that. Because, like, I'll tell you, I don't use all these. I don't think I use any of these down here at the bottom. Those aren't things I want to change that often, but I really change these 4 heads all the time. I want CV control over those. I want to be able to carve in and out which one I want to hear when and not have to manually do that, you know? That would be cool. But that's a known thing. That module's been around for a while and people have been saying that for a long time. They're designing modules without asking the heads. They need to ask like the Eurorack heads, like the people who know what's up. Like me. Okay, so let's throw some modulation around. I think at this point, the patch is about like making a little bit more like an organism. And that involves just like plugging in all the wires, you know? So we have a bunch of oct outs available here. And what inputs do we have? We have stuff like, all right, that's a fast one though. Let's think about this. If we're doing a faster modulation, what would be nice to move around quicker? I'm literally just looking. Hold up, let's not do that approach. Let's say, what is there too much of right now? And that is this, rings. It's just like sustaining out there. So let's modulate damp with something. In fact, this random out might be really nice. That really cut it out, didn't it? I need to listen to just it for a second just to make sure that it's even happening. Okay, that's too much. So I'm curious how much space it's going to make. We had event, and now nothing. But that is not because of this. That is because of which bit is triggering. So if I choose a bit that is more active, which one is this triggering? Clouds. Let's swap them. That might be enough activity though, because I mean, this is, again, it's the sculptural idea. Let's pull away. Like we have we put together this big block of everybody talking at the same time. Now let's give everybody turns, like phasing turns. Okay, let's say that's good. So back to modulation destinations. Timbre in Plaits. Let's do both of these. I'm not hearing the bass and I don't remember if that's because I need to do something. That would be this one, which just means this bit hasn't happened yet. Maybe it needs to happen more often. Like that one, that actually I just missed. The bass was happening all the time in the beginning and it's now hasn't even happened yet. I feel like it's, here we go. Those are too fast. Okay. I can get into that. The envelope is a little short on Cascade. I think it's designed for shorter envelopes. Shorter envelope use, not the kind of, like, I'm using it, like I'm trying to use it for a really long envelope. So I sort of have, the release of the low pass gate on Plaits adjusted pretty long, so as to like add a little bit to that. It's nice. I'm just looking around to see if there's anything else I've missed. Anything else that could be cool to do. Maybe we like modulate octs speed with we probably need to attenuate that with like an attenuated small ass attenuator. With like an attenuated random. What will that do? Let's modulate position on rings. That's another nice like timbral change. This is moving too fast though. I thought this random out would just move it slower, just a tiny bit if I put the attenuator to slight. Yeah, I don't know, that just makes sense. But it was like cooking, it was like. Yeah, no, that's too much. Oh, that's damp. Another thing we could do, I do this sometimes, is modulate rise and fall of envelopes. That really makes some changes happen. Let's use some stackable cables for this. I think we're gonna wanna grab some of these that are already used for other things. What would happen if we do the rise of one and the fall of the other? And vice versa. That actually should be a short cable, but no. Yeah, wait. Yes. Did I flip them or did I not flip them? Yeah, I think I did. I'm kind of confused. I like the slew happening in Moskwa right now. Zoop, zoom. I don't know if it's going to be too much, but I guess. I haven't heard anything too weird. I could modulate some of Morphagene's parameters as well. Why not? Grab more stacks. Will these yellow ones reach? Yes. It's been pretty crowded down here. Like slide in gene size. 28, sometimes 29. Let's listen. Oh, you know what we need to modulate is the actual SOS control, so that we get sometimes Morphagene and then sometimes not Morphagene. What could we use? Another random. I kind of want to use this random, unless I have another one. Yeah, because it's like too constant right now, I feel like. nice. I think that's it. I think we have it. It's a good vibe. Morphagene, by the way, is this piano that's on there. Is something that I played in using Noir, which is a Native Instruments device. It's my favorite sounding piano. It's just so well done, and there's so much texture to it, and a little effects engine, and it's amazing. So yeah, I just played some stuff, and it made for a really great reel that can then be granularized. It's nice. So yeah, thanks to Chaos Devices for making all these amazing modules. Let's see what else is in here. Thanks to Make Noise for sending this mimeophone way back for episode 1. You remember that? Qubit for sending Data Bender and Cascade. And huge thanks to Blackmagic Design for sending some serious cinema cameras. They're the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro and the 4K. And this 6K Pro is like a whole new zone. I mean, it has like built-in ND filters. The menu and everything is so easy to use. It's the easiest menu I've ever used on a camera. Everything just makes sense. There's a touch screen. You can assign certain buttons to do whatever functions you want. And they have like XLR inputs. They take time code. They can jam sync time code, which is what I use to sync the music and the voice and everything all together. And so like with my Sony camera, I have to use an external device that plugs time code into it because it needs to see it all the time. But these, you just give it to it and say, here it is, and it'll jam sync, as it's called. So yeah, I'm really grateful to Blackmagic Design for sending all the things and getting me switched over to DaVinci Resolve, which is really an amazing NLE. I think it's better than the others I've used, which were Premiere and Final Cut. So yeah, thanks for coming along on this ride here. I'm really happy you chose to spend this zone with me here for episode 2, exploring the joy of patching. How about it? All right, well, our time is just about up. I'll see you in the next episode.